Okay, today, September 30th, 2021, the title, Man, the Unchanging Image of God, class number 266. I'd like to start the class today by reading a little something that really caught my eye from this book, The Eyes of the Blind by Walter Lanyon. I've read this book so many times until I can't even find most of it. It was paperback. It's really old, and it's all torn apart. And I'm going to have to get me a new one because I really like this book. But in The Eyes of the Blind, which goes along, I just found it just popped up right as I was saying, okay, I'm ready. My class is all ready to go. I got all my notes here. And then I saw this, and a little voice said, read it. And I said, okay, let me check this out. And so this is what it says. Then shall the eyes of the blind be opened and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Have you ever thought what it must be like to have been blind, physically speaking, and then suddenly to have your sight restored? The wonders of a universe in which you have lived and only contacted by touching, smelling, and hearing are suddenly all transformed by sight. A whole new universe lies before you with color, beauty, form, and outline, and yet it would be the identical universe in which you had been living all the time. Everything that you were experiencing with the regained sight had always been there and instantly available to you, but you did not see it. And even if you knew it, you did not experience the feel of seeing it. It is one thing to write about a field of flowers and make that writing real and living, but it is another to suddenly find yourself in the midst of such a field, knee-deep in beauty and drenched with the glory of living, a pulsating expression of life. Can you imagine the 1,001 revelations that would take place in coming from blindness into life? Blessings as infinite as the sands of the sea would be yours. Can you imagine the joy of hearing your first symphony after having seen, as far as you were concerned, a soundless orchestra sway a vast number of people? It would be too wonderful for words, so full of revelation. The joy of untwining the various strands of music that wove themselves into a glorious melody, and yet you would have to admit it had all existed all the time, but you did not hear it. A man who had been blind would not change anything by regaining his sight, and yet everything would be changed. He would experience the process of having been suddenly forced into a new universe, and yet he would remain where he had always been. It is wonderful. And so the blind one is told of the beauties of nature and the universe. He finally knows all about it, but it still only exists in the mental part of his makeup because he does not experience it. Until you experience a thing yourself, it is only in the realm of the mental or on the plane of imagination. And until it is brought out into actual experience, it is of no practical value to you. For 40 years, the children of Israel roamed across a desert, which might have been traversed in a few weeks, but it took them 40 years to see or experience the promised land flowing with milk and honey. When Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is at hand, he stated a clear, concise, and absolute fact. Many believed it mentally, but to see it physically seemed another thing. I thought that was just awesome. To finally know intellectually something that is there and yet not experience it. And then one day, boom, a flash of light and experience it. And all of the revelation of what was always there is experienced, is seen, is heard, is touched, and realize I've been in this all the time, but it never looked like it. That's why I call this man the unchanging image of God. God is the substance of all form. Man is the form. God is the essence. As a wave is one with the ocean, as glass is one with the cup or a jar, as wood is one with the table, so God, essence, presence, is one with the form man, male and female. Now just think about that. The essence has never changed. Therefore, man has never changed. It just looks like it. But man has been living, male and female, as the image of God forever and will always be that and will never change. But the eyes of the blind have to open. And this essence is an assurance. It is the substance of what we all hope for. It is the evidence. And as long as the substance and the evidence exist, we will be that imaged form that God is looking at, and we will never change. The name of the form, man, is I, capital I. And every man, male and female, carries the same name, I. I can never be separate from God. I am absolute. I am perfect because God said, be perfect. Even Jesus said, be ye perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. He wasn't telling you to try to be perfect. He wasn't telling you to just kind of act like you're perfect. He's saying you are perfect because you are the I. Remember in the Old Testament, God spoke to Abraham and said, walk perfect before me. Why? Because Abraham is I. Because his original name was Abram. But God, the I, with him, changed it to Abraham because Abraham meant father of multitudes. I am the Father. Before, Abram just meant exalted father. But Abraham, father of multitudes, all is I. And with that change in consciousness, with that acceptance, not change, but with that acceptance in consciousness, he realized I am all there is. And this I is one with God. And God is perfect and complete. So in reality, we are all the I. And this I is perfect and complete. It is God in action. I was jogging. I think it was it was Tuesday. On Tuesday, I was jogging, and as I went down one of the hills, there was a guy down there working on a car. And and his friend was outside, and his friend knows my name because I've been jogging so long. And one day we spoke, and he just said, "Hey, brother Orr, how are you?" I said, "I'm fine, man. How you doing?" And the guy who was working on this car said, "Can you? I'd like to know if you could give me that fountain of youth. What's the secret to that fountain of youth that you're expressing?" I said, "The secret is meditation. The secret is I. Somebody's going to ask you something, and you can discern whether they're just being flippant or whether they really mean it." And I could look at the guy. He meant it. And I said, "The secret is in meditating who I am." He said, "Who I am?" I said, "Yep." And he said, Oh, wow. He said, "That's interesting. I'd really like to know a little more." I said, "Okay." And I kept on jogging. And as I finished my jog and came back home, and I was coming in the house, a little voice said, "Go back down there and tell him what you meant by all of that." And I said, "You know what? I think I will." So I got in my truck, And I drove down. It was about a 2-minute drive. And I drove down there, and I got out, and we started talking. And I broke it all down. And I just said, every time you say I, and I say I, and everybody else around the world says I, we're all saying the same I. It's just some of us are looking at it differently. Some of us say I, and we mean personality. Others who have become more enlightened say I, and they think God. And I say God just means good. So I am good, which is perfect, which is complete. And he was like, that's something to think about. And I said, yeah. I said, I don't care who you are. If you say I, you're saying God. You may not know that's what you're saying, but as you start to evolve mentally, pretty soon you'll accept it and things will change. The eyes of the blind will be open. And so as we continue to contemplate that, I forgot one little thing. Yesterday when I went jogging, he was out there again. And he saw me and he said, hey, brother, how is it today? I said, it's fine, man. All is well. You know, I'm still I, and so are you. And he smiled and laughed. And my first thought was, well, he's got a long way to go because he's probably never heard this anywhere. And I said within myself, no, he doesn't have a long way to go. He's already there. It's up to me to keep realizing that he is the same I that I am. And just that little crack that opened up when I shared that with him will begin to expand. It can't help it because light always overtakes darkness. Another thing is, as I was talking before we started the class, and I was talking about my wife, Soror, who lives across the street, and that she had started telling me about the problems that they were having at their church, and they had like this interim minister. And so she said, this interim minister doesn't want to do anything other than show up on Sunday and speak for a few minutes, and then she's gone. She leaves her car parked right in such a way so she can just walk right out and hop in the car and leave. She said, and we're paying her $25,000 a year. We don't have that much, but, you know, and she said, you know, she doesn't want to go visit the sick. And she said if they're sick, they can call her and ask her to come and visit. And I wanted to stop her in the middle of all of it, and I just couldn't. And as she kept going, I said, well, you know what? I said, y'all have what you need, and it may not be in the form of her, but as you realize the I, as you realize God, you can't be separated, things will change. The things that will change will be you. The appearance will just clear up. It has to, because that's what God has said. So you have to stop talking about how bad it is. I said, and it will be all right because it's already all right. She said, you know what? It is. I said, yep. It's all right. It's always all right. Remember that woman said when she came to the prophet, and he said, is everything okay? She said, all is well. It is. It's never not well. Which leads me to my next point. He who sows to the flesh or from the flesh reap corruption. Now, to think any way other than what I've shared up to this point is sowing to the flesh. And sowing to the flesh means we're having another God. And that means separation or the sin that does so easily beset us. That's what Paul said. We have to let go of that weight. Let go of what we call unrighteous judgment. We have to let go of thinking that, you know, I know God said A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but it doesn't look like it. And so, therefore, I need to do something about it. And you've always heard people say stuff like that. I need to do something. I have to do something. I can't just sit here. And that is the sin that does so easily beset us. Because if we just sit and think in terms of, I am going to judge righteous judgment. And righteous judgment just means what? I am the way. I know this. But it's so easy to take the Lord's name in vain. As in, I am sick, suffering. I am mortal, a human personality. In reality, I have never been, nor will I ever be, other than perfect, complete, that which I am. That's the one way. I can't change that. I cannot change that. When it looks like things on the outside change, they don't. We just quit seeing them as they appear because we realize this thing is just like the sky sitting down on the mountains, or the sky sitting down on the water, which we call the horizon. I thought about that this morning. If I were on a train and I could look way down the tracks, if I were up in there with the engineer and I could look way down, the tracks going really straight, and then it looks like the tracks come together, I wouldn't hop up and jump off the train. Because if I believe that the tracks are coming together down at the end, then that means this mortal man is taking over, and there's another God. And thou shalt have no other gods except God, the I, that I am one with. So I realized, taking the Lord's name in vain is a sickness which has nothing to do with me. Because creation is complete. As in heaven, so on earth. Heaven is within. It is within that which I am. I am one with God. Remember, Jesus said heaven is at hand. So that means there's I, and then all this out here is an expression of that which I am. I am always in heaven. Heaven is always at hand because heaven and earth are within God and me, this I that I am. Nothing is incomplete in Genesis 1. Nothing. God looked at everything that he had made and called it very good. The Word became flesh in John 1. Therefore, it has to become flesh because I am always the wave that's one with the ocean that God is. I am always the tumbler that is one with the glass that God is. You can't separate the glass from the tumbler. And even if you broke the tumbler all the way up, the idea of the tumbler is still there, and somebody else could just make another one. The essence never changes, and the tumbler is always one with it. And when there's no use for the tumbler anymore, then I am still one with the essence. This image of God, which is unchanging. It cannot change. Now, here's a powerful statement that most people, especially Christians, will say it. They say it a lot. We walk by faith and not by sight. We walk by faith and not by sight. See, it's always going to look like appearances are the truth. And that's most people walk by their appearances, trying to do something about something that appears to not be palatable. They don't look like God is anywhere near. People will say, why did God let this happen to me? Or why did God let this happen to such and such a person? Why does God let people get sick? Why does God everything? And we have a tendency to lay all that blame on God, since God is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. And in reality, that goes back to what I read when we first got started, the eyes of the blind. When your eyes open up and you realize God has nothing to do with this world, the world of appearances. When we wake up and the eyes open and we see, well, this was never this way because this is not what God made. And what God made, he called very good, which means he's calling everything he made himself, very God. This essence, as I said, it just doesn't change. It can't change. It's always been the way that it is. But we have to walk like it's always the way it is and not pay attention to all of this stuff that's going on around us. Before we make any move with regard to some appearance that seems inharmonious, we have to begin to think, I am in the midst of me. And this thing is coming to try to attack the Christ of my being, that which I am. But as long as I know I am I, no weapon formed against me can prosper. It has to break itself up. I'm so reminded of Jehoshaphat when they were there and they were going to have to fight the enemy. I even wrote a song about it. And it was go out and meet your enemy with singing and praise. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. When you stand still, it means you are reaffirming the fact that I am I, which I have accepted. That's the stillness. I see people all the time saying, I need help, or at least not all the time. I don't hear a lot. I messed that up. I did see where one person said, please, I need help going into the stillness. And I'm like, no, you need to accept that I am I. And that means I am still. That means all of the thinking that I must do something about the situation that appears to be coming at me, it will discomfit itself. That's what happened to the enemy that came against Jehoshaphat. You will not have to fight in this battle. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. The only way to stand still is to constantly realize I am I. Now I'm walking by faith. See, I have to walk by truth that I know only intellectually in mind. Now, when I have experienced a certain truth, it's a little easier to walk in this perfection. You know, you've experienced truth. You've experienced things that go away. Like I was talking earlier, you sit down and you think, I'm going to get rid of being, how can I say, irritated by these gnats and mosquitoes and bugs and what have you. And then what happens? Oh, you don't have to fight in this. You already said that was what you're going to do. And then somebody comes and gives you citronella candles. Somebody comes and gives you a bug zapper. And you say to yourself, I didn't even have to get up and do anything. I didn't even think about it anymore. I just knew that was what I was going to do. Well, that's something that I have experienced. But there are some truths that I have not experienced, only intellectually in mind. And so as I realize that I have only known the truth, as Walter Lanyon said, it's one thing to know about flowers, to read about flowers, but to wake up and realize I am in the midst of beauty. Now you've experienced it. Therefore, being justified by faith, Romans 5. We have peace with God, knowing that the trying of the faith works patience, which is the will of God. And in that patience, you're waiting for the intellectual experience to move into the spiritual experience. And once we move into that spiritual experience, the things discomfit themselves. They have to. That's law. That is divine law. It cannot change. So, I can't overemphasize the fact that we will always be walking in the truth that we've experienced in mind, but we're going to always have to walk by the truth that we know intellectually in mind. I know this is right. You know, just like you walked in 2 times 2 is 4, even when you didn't understand how it was 4, but you kept dealing with it until it clicked. And when it clicked, you experienced it. So you never, ever have to go back and realize how 2 times 2 is 4. You've already experienced it. So you will walk in that for the rest of your life. So walking in truth or going on in the mind means I am walking in that mind, which is what God is and what we are, one with. Mind embodies that which we call I. And I can't get out of that mind because God envisioned itself as I, this image of itself. And this truth must always be going on in mind. This truth that is always going on in mind is I. I am the truth. Contemplation, as I told that man as I was jogging, is the answer. Why? Because of Isaiah 26:3. I was able to keep at perfect peace whose mind is stayed on this. Well, how is my mind stayed on God? I am always constantly reaffirming the fact that I am I. I am in God. I can't get out of there. I am locked in there. There's nothing for me to do except continue to understand that. Because God is the substance, that which stands under, which we call understanding. God is the substance of that which I am. And as long as the substance doesn't change, then I don't either. Says, yeah, but it looks like the body is getting older and doesn't seem to feel the same way it always does. Jesus said, what is that to thee? What is that to you? That's not you. A changing body. That's not you. In reality, your body is not changing because you always have a body. And you must always experience that body within mind, walking in faith, that I am the same yesterday, today, and forever, just like Jesus Christ. And then here comes this, the little question is, but how do we deal with loved ones or friends, so-called enemies, and just people in general, those who tend to disagree, who want to debate, who want to say, but I know, ding, 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 ding. In Psalm 82, it says, you are gods and children of the Most High. And Jesus even said it to the Pharisees. Does it not say in your law you are gods? Though seemingly impossible to see this, and you will never see this with human eyes, I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. Jesus went on to say, having seen me, you have seen the Father. That's the attitude that we need to take. See, if you see me, you see the Father that sent me. And everything we see was not the original made by the Father. Paul said, things that are seen are not made of things that appear. They're made out of the essence, God, the substance of all forms. And we have the gift of spiritual discernment whenever it is needed. When you see an unruly person, spiritual discernment can rear up on the inside of you and say, fear not, this is I. No matter how this person appears to be acting, nothing is withheld from those who walk upright. And how do we walk upright? We walk and talk like we are one with God. I have overcome the world. You are in this world, but not of it. Why? You are the I that is one with God who has overcome the world. Before the foundations of the world, we were in him. In him we live and move and have our being. We should always walk around realizing, I am I. There is nothing that can change that. It is one way. It is one way. I am the way. And that way can't change. It always has to be exactly as it is. It's immutable, unchangeable. God is the God of the entire earth. Just think about that. I am one with the God, which is the God of the entire earth. And this God is the invisible essence that I am made of. And what happens when my eyes open up and I see that this is what I am, this is who I am? I can't ever change from being what I am. Now, why would I want to? I don't need to be like everybody else. I already am like everybody else because everybody else is the same I that I am. I can't even discriminate. I can't even say, well, this person is different. Because, but what about all these little kids who are born with birth defects and all these people who have been hurt in wars and all this? I'm just trying to say, they're still I. And these appearances that have come, we have to learn how to get beyond what we're looking at. Jesus walked up to a man and said, stretch out your hand. Why? Because he was discerning the eye. He wasn't looking at the outer. Healing is never changing a broken body into a good one. Healing is never changing somebody from blind to being able to see. There is no such thing as blindness. There is no such thing as suffering, sickness, and disease. That's what is meant by, I am with you always, even to the end of the world. There's no such thing as that. And you don't change bad into good. You just realize there is nothing separate and apart from God. And all of this quibbling and quabbling about the devil and all this stuff coming against you, when Jesus on the mountain realized, I am the self, I am all there is, I am the way, there's nothing that can separate me from the Father, which I am one with, the devil left for what? A more convenient time. Let's just think about it. The devil left. What was the devil? All these thoughts that were coming to him saying, you can do something about your situation. You know, when I sit here in this house sometimes all alone by myself, and I start looking, man, you know, I could stand maybe I should, you know, I've got my wife situated, and if I could just, it's like, no, this is what you just need to do. You need to realize I am I. You are set apart for a specific purpose. That's what hallowed means. Hallowed is thy name. I am set apart for a specific purpose. And you are hallowed because you are the I that is set apart for a specific purpose. Rocco Errico, in his book, Setting a Trap for God, says, when a man is sitting on the podium and he has a cup that is set to the side with water in it, that cup is hallowed. It is set apart for a specific purpose. It says the ground that you walk on, the ground where you stand is holy ground. It's hallowed. It is there for a specific purpose. And you are the purpose of life. You came to fulfill a specific purpose. And that purpose is to let God, the essence, come through you as a channel. And that is to cause people to wake up to their purpose. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. That world is only known by spiritual discernment. We just have to know that it's there. even if not experientially. If we stand firm and keep our eye on truth, the I that I am, keep truth going on in mind, we will eventually have the experience. That one I was talking about in Romans 5. The triangle of faith works patience, and patience, experience. When you know that you're being patient in your intellectual state mentally, you know that patience is going to bring you the spiritual experience. That is your hope of glory. That which is meant to be has already been, and that which is being is now. The I that represents all forms of they that are the Lord's, they that dwell within the earth and the fullness thereof. Your specific purpose has already been done because you are the I. And intellectually, you know that there's something that is specific that you are supposed to do. And like Jesus, you're not supposed to destroy anything, but you're here to fulfill. And that fulfillment comes through God in you, Christ, your hope of glory. So how can you say you love God whom you've never seen, and you don't love your brother who you see every day? Here's some powerful words. We serve God by serving each other. We serve God by seeing only God, and overlooking or knowing personality is not true. We have to know that personality is not true because there are too many changing personalities, mood swings, and all that kind of stuff. God is all. We serve each other by knowing that when I see you, my immediate thought may not be, this is the I. My immediate thought may not be that. However, intellectually, I have to keep knowing I am looking at the I. I am seeing the I. Man is God's creation of itself, and God cannot change. God is appearing as man, male and female, with dominion over all the earth. Whatever God has done, this is Solomon again. I was there one with God. What God has done, I was right there. That is the greatest gift the Father can give to the Son, no gender. God gives us grace to be the channel, to do the works through. This is law. And we have the perfect, unchanging relationship to God, to oneness. This must be recognized and realized. This is our consciousness. God's image of itself is man, male and female. This cannot change. What God does is done forever. Nothing can be added to it and nothing taken away. We are the unchanging good, God's word, the I that I am, that we will always be and that which will never change, no matter how it looks. I don't care what it looks like, it will never change. I was walking in the house yesterday, and it came to me, if I could just believe, and another voice said, but you do believe. You do believe because you are the I, and that I believes, and that I knows. I know that all things are possible. I was in God, believing and knowing the truth, no matter what. I have always been one with God. I can never not be one with God. I have always been alive because eternal life means that. Eternality is something that never began and something that can never end. That's what we all are. We are always living. So when it comes to me, somebody calls me and says, such and such a person died, I immediately turn within myself and realize, no, I am I. And this is the I that always is. And though this outer picture of such and such a person is no longer out here walking in this world, this I is still the eternal image of God and is existing more than in my thoughts, more than in my mind, but experientially. Everybody that has ever left the earth, as we have seen it from a, I have no other word but carnal standpoint, because carnality to me means good and evil. Now there's just eternality. There always was eternality. And God says, all shall know me. Whoever left is in the bosom of the Father and knows God and will experience it somewhere in what we call this invisible universe that we have to discern spiritually. But one day, all of us will be looking at this eternal, invisible universe, because it can't change. It cannot change. No matter how it looks out here, what you're looking at is not the truth. The trees that you see, these are not the trees that God created. You see birds falling from the sky. It says the Father knows if a sparrow falls. That means the Father knows a sparrow does not fall, because all there is heaven, and earth is the outpicturing of heaven. This that we are looking at is this world. And as we discern spiritually that which is behind this world, because things that are seen are not made of things that appear, we're always looking at the essence, the substance, and that is our understanding. And if we stick with that, if we stand firm in that conviction, we will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Everybody is alive. Everybody we have ever seen is alive. They can't change. That's how absolute it is. Tennyson said, God is closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. We are the unchanging presence of God. What's the secret? The secret is realized spiritual consciousness. This is grace. This is the gift of God, the gift that is unchanging. The eyes of the blind open up, and what happens is the single eye that is no longer able to see double, to see good and evil, to see changing appearances. Even though it looks at it, it knows the truth. It knows that I am the truth. As I said, this is the secret. Realized spiritual consciousness. This is grace, the gift of God. Amen. And so it is.